It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you. It's daunting me. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a ghost of you and me. Of you and me. All these whispers.
My name is James Hershey. Right back.
All these shadows in my mind. My reflections I can't find. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a
That ought to
ghost
do
of
it.
you and me. Of you and me. Don't let 'em take you away. Don't let 'em bring you down inside. It's just the mirrors in your mind. Don't let 'em bring you down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody today?
On tonight's episode, we are going to be talking about the Zone of Silence. This one's going to be a really interesting one. There's a lot that goes into it, and we'll get into that in just a second. But before we do, the horror world had a really sad loss. I'm going to say it that way. The other day, there was a kid named Derek Haviland, and he was like a super fan. He loved horror movies. He loved everything horror. And I got in contact with him through a friend of ours, Justin Cool. He got me in touch with Derek's mother. And I sent him an autographed book and everything. And then, he took a picture with the book and sent it back to me and everything. And he was just an awesome, awesome guy. And he loved horror so much. And he is somebody that affected a lot of us that are in this business. From me being a horror author to a lot of actors that have been in horror movies to just other fans, other people that really love horror. This kid's enthusiasm and love for horror and the paranormal was huge. He passed away. He had a lifelong illness that he was battling, and he was a real trooper, but he lost his fight. And so I would just like to say, rest in peace, Derek. You definitely made my life a little bit brighter by being in it. And I would like to dedicate this episode of Staring into the Abyss to you and your family. So I'm going to throw it to old boy and let him say a few words, and then we'll get to the Zone of Silence.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, I also met him through I met his mom, Debbie, and he became a fan of my horror group. That's how I met James too, and he was like a big fan. And like James said, he had a very bad illness. He was bedridden, but he loved horror movies and dolls. And James had to send him a book, and he always took pictures of horror, everything. His mom bought him everything horror movies, and she's a really awesome lady too, and her family. And yes, I'm very heartbroken over this. I wish everybody prayers, and I hope you guys pull through. But thank you, Derek, and maybe you're in a better place now. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so the Zone of Silence. This place is supposed to be off the charts weird. You've got everything that goes in this. You've got aliens. You've got disappearances. You've got weird magnetic anomalies. You've got radio transmissions that can't go through. There's just a ton of different stuff that goes into this one. And depending on who you talk to, there's all kinds of different things that they say. This is going to be kind of a hard one to unravel, but we're going to do the best we can. So basically where this story starts is it starts in a place called Green River, Utah in 1970. Okay, on July 2nd, the United States military base that is located there fired an Athena test missile. And they fired it down south, and it was supposed to land at the White Sands military base or somewhere in that area of the testing range at White Sands in New Mexico. Now, it did not land there. Now, it might have been that somebody at the base made a mistake when they programmed the missile, or it could be that maybe the missile itself was just faulty and screwed up. But whatever the reason, the missile kept on cruising right past White Sands, and it went 400 more miles south, and it ended up in Mexico. Okay, and it crashed down in the desert in a state of that's called Chihuahua, and it's a few miles away from where the reserve field station is there now. Now that might have been the end of it. Okay, it might have been just one of them funny stories where, hey, we shot off a missile and it didn't go where we wanted it to. If the military would have just said, oh, our bad, we screwed up, we shot a missile and accidentally blew up the desert, instead of being secretive. But like our government does, they didn't just cop to it and say, yeah, we did it. What they did instead was they sent people down there to sneak around the desert and try to find this missile. They ended up finding the missile buried in a dune, and they set up like a camp around it to secure the area, make sure nobody messed with the missile or stole anything from the site. And they started removing the missile. Well, they took the missile out, all of the fragments of the missile, all the pieces that they could find scattered around, and they took a whole bunch of the desert around it with it, the sand and the majority of that dune as well. And they loaded all that up onto train cars because they had built train tracks to lead right to the site where the missile crashed. So they loaded all that stuff up on train cars, and they took it out, loaded it up onto planes, and flew it out of there. After they did that, they took the train tracks back off that led to the airstrip, and they loaded those up on planes and flew it out of there too, and then just bailed. Now, the whole time all this is going on, they are pretending nothing's happening. Okay, they're not saying, hey, we had a missile that crashed here, and we're just going to pick it up. You know, so nothing to see here, no big deal. We're just picking up our missile that went astray. It's this big top secret thing, right? So everybody knows something's going on, but nobody quite knows what the hell is actually going on. Now, whenever you have a situation like that, what happens is you start getting all these crazy conspiracy theories coming from everywhere, where people will say, oh, it's aliens, or oh, it's dinosaurs, or oh, Bigfoot's there, or whatever. It's always something that is happening whenever there's a secretive thing. Now, it could be that there was absolutely nothing sinister or out of the ordinary going on at all. They were just being secretive about it, which is kind of what they do. That might have been the end of it there when the military left. But what the military did was they hired a local security force to protect the missile before they could get their people in and build the tracks and the whole nine once they located it. And they got this guy named Jamie Gonzalez, who was a local guy there, to head up this local security force to protect that missile. And there's actually a small marble marker that commemorates Jamie that stands on a small hill there that's overlooking the zone of silence. And they hired these people to, like I said, protect the missile, make sure nobody got to it. So it wasn't something that nobody knew about because that small security force knew about it. Now, after the military left, Jamie and the guys, they said, hey, we got something here. You know, this is kind of cool. We can talk to the media about this, and we can build up some hype about this area and maybe build a hotel and make some cash. So that's basically what happened, was they started leaking little stories to the local media around the area that there was some kind of thing that happened there. The aliens were there, and there was a secret government cover-up and all this kind of stuff. And it just kind of started to snowball from there. Now, the next step here isn't quite clear what actually happened. Some say that Jamie started all this, like I just said, and to make himself look better and to make some cash. Other people say that the landowners in the area are the ones that started making up these tall tales about the missile. And others say that there was local scientists that did it. But either way, that's how this whole legend began, with people saying that this place was so weird. So whichever the case may be, the local newspapers picked up the story and started running with it. This led the national media there in Mexico to start talking about it. And that led to papers in America to start talking about it, and then the media in America to start talking about it. Next thing you know, it's this legendary place where all this crazy stuff is going on. In the beginning, one of the main claims they were making is that in the zone of silence, there were strange magnetic anomalies in the atmosphere. And what that did was prevent radio transmissions from being able to leave the zone of silence. So in other words, radios won't work there. You can't pick up messages, you can't send messages on like walkie-talkies or CBs or anything like that. It just won't work. Also, supposedly, when you have a compass, the needle will spin on the compass because compasses they use magnetism for a compass. So that's another claim, is that those magnetic anomalies cause the needles to spin around and around and around and around on compasses. They say that the magnetic waves are so unique that they actually create a vortex that will draw in the material from the upper atmosphere, and that is why the missile crashed. That's what they're claiming, is that these magnetic anomalies cause that missile to be sucked out of the air and crash down into that area. And that's what the government was there to study and try to figure out. It even went so far as saying that NASA was planning on building a facility there just to study this vortex. Now, the center of the vortex they call the Vértice de Trino, and it is located where the three states of Coahuila, Chihuahua, and Durango meet. Okay, and they say that you can collect magnetic dust there. It's like this metallic cosmic dust, and that you can pick it up with a magnet. It'll stick to a magnet, this dust will. Now, that is not such a far-fetched claim. It doesn't have to be cosmic magic dust from space, aliens, or anything like that. I'm a guy that has done my fair share of prospecting in my life. I've went out gold panning, I've run sluice boxes, I've found gold in streams and stuff like that. So I can tell you that every single pan full of dirt that you dig up, no matter where in the world you are, is going to contain something called black sand. Now, black sand, I believe, is iron oxide, if I'm not mistaken, but we all call it black sand. It's this really, really dark black sand, and it is magnetic because it's iron, and a magnet will pick it up. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that there is dust there that can be picked up by a magnet. I don't think there's anything strange about that whatsoever. They also had a meteorite that fell into this zone, and I think it's like 1969, 1970, something like that. There was a meteorite that fell here as well, and they're claiming the vortex sucked the meteorite in it also. Supposedly, the meteorite also had some very strange behavior as it was coming down. Supposedly, it dodged around a Russian satellite and orbited the Earth once before it crashed into the desert there. So it's falling from space. Instead of just going straight through the atmosphere and crashing into the desert, it dodges around a satellite so it doesn't hit it, circles around the Earth once, and then picks its spot and crashes into the desert, is what they say. I don't think that's probably not true, honestly. That doesn't usually happen. It might have got caught in orbit, and maybe it just missed the satellite. Maybe it was one of those near misses as it was doing its orbit, and then crashed in as it lowered in altitude, and gravity took over. That makes more sense to me than some self-propelled meteorite that can dodge things. So basically, they are comparing this place, the Zone of Silence, to like the Bermuda Triangle, the pyramids, all those kind of things, right? The interesting thing is they all lie between the 26th and the 28th parallels. And they're saying that because of that, there's something going on there that links them all together. I told you this is going to be kind of complex to try to thread it all together because there's a lot of moving parts here. But basically, if you want a theme of it, they say that in the Zone of Silence, things fall from the sky. That's an easy way to say it, that it sucks things out of the sky because there's magnetic anomalies and it disrupts radio signals, disrupts magnetic signals, causes equipment not to work properly, causes planes and all that kind of stuff not be able to fly properly. Their instruments won't work properly. Basically, all the things they say about the Bermuda Triangle, they're saying the zone of silence does the same things. Now, to these claims, there have also been some very strange claims that have been added, and I'm going to go through some of these for you. And basically, it sounds to me almost like whatever they could throw at the wall and see would stick. They say that there are abnormal mutations in the flora and the fauna in the zone of silence. The plant and the animal populations are supposed to contain larger and more robust individuals than the normal populations outside of the zone of silence. They often talk about these triangular shapes that they find on the tortoise shells there. They also talk about the occasional purple coloring of a plant called the nopal coyotilo. And they also say that the people there are much larger than the people outside of the zone of silence. There is a unpublished and, to my knowledge, unseen study that everybody always talks about, but I've never seen it and I can't find it, that says that the blood of the inhabitants of the zone is also different than the blood of anybody else on Earth. They also say that the attraction of debris from space to the vortex of the zone of silence is proven by the Alinda meteorite and strange rocks that people find in the desert. They say that small pebbles with desert varnish, which is an iron manganese, is a common coating in desert environments. But they're saying that these are pieces of these meteorites that fell. The zone also has a reputation for being an ancient area. So they're trying to link that in with the ancient alien theories of like the pyramids and Stonehenge and all of that. They also say that it has a connection to both the past and the future. So there's a time travel element of some sort here. So basically you have hundreds and hundreds of people that come to the zone of silence each year as tourists. They want to look for fossils and meteorites and different artifacts, anything weird and strange that they can find and take with them as souvenirs. They have a bunch of shops there that sell a lot of stuff like that. They're like tourist trap kind of, I guess you could call them rock shops, kind of. They sell like different fossils and geodes and all that kind of different artifacts from the zone of silence. They also say that extraterrestrial communication from both above and below the desert floor takes place. The vortex and the strange magnetic waves are also supposed to provide the ideal atmosphere for the reception of communication with aliens in outer space. So they're saying because of the vortex and the weird magnetic anomalies in the atmosphere that suck things down, they're saying that gives them a better ability to communicate with aliens in space. So the messages will come down faster and easier and clearer, and they'll go up faster, easier, and clearer. They actually have groups of these people that they call zoneros that regularly hold conferences and overnight meetings in the zone of silence. And they claim that they speak to aliens there. One group, which is called El Centro de Investigación de Antropología Cósmica de la Escuela, a bunch of other words. Okay, it's a long, long word. Translated, it's the Research Center of Cosmic Anthropology from the Philosophical School of the Light. Okay, this group believes that there's an ancient race of tall yellow Maya that lives directly below the zone of silence, and that there are hidden pyramids underneath there as well. They call this hidden underground civilization the Magneto Zen, or the Tierra del Magnetissimo. So those are some of the other strange theories. So basically what you have here, in a nutshell, I'm going to try to gather all this up into one big ball for you because it's a lot. You have a place here that they claim has magnetic anomalies in the atmosphere that causes things to get sucked down into it, whether it's planes, missiles, meteorites, whatever. They also claim that the same anomalies and the same vortex that causes that enables them to speak directly to multiple races of aliens, and that they do so on a regular basis. They also claim that because of the anomalies, you have all kinds of weird mutations going on with the plants and animals, and that they're a lot bigger than normal. So in a nutshell, that's basically what we're dealing with here. Okay, so I'm going to go through what I believe about the zone of silence, whether I believe it's real or not. I'm going to talk about some of the different things and give explanations for them here in a minute. But first, I want to throw over to Old Boy and have him talk a little bit about the zone of silence and some of the things that he's learned about it.
Thank you. It's very interesting because I was reading and looking up a lot of this stuff. Is you can't have any phone calls there. There's no communications of any kind of electronics at all. You can't use compasses, like it said. It just goes around in circles constantly. So it's like a dead zone. And I also read it's like a line through Mexico, like on the right at the bottom of the United States to Mexico, cuts all the way through the whole. They showed like through the world, like through Africa and some other countries too. So it's not just in that area, but I guess in this area in Mexico. Another thing is they said they have a lot of meteors that hit there, and over the thousands and millions of years, that's why there's so much buildup of magnifying material. So it just keeps. That's what it pulled that missile over. Because I read about that when the U.S. came with that missile and came in to come. They had to talk to the Mexican government in the first place because they shot it from White Sands, but that's what ended up happening. Plus, this guy flew over, I think, in the 50s or the 30s, and his plane crashed there. So it messes up everything. It's like the Bermuda Triangle and knocks out all electronic communications. You can't use any kind of compass at all. Pretty much, and there's like some kind of little, like you said, some kind of place they do a lot of study in there with the animals and the plants, because there's like a cactus that turns, it's like a purple, it's very rare, and the animals are there very they're mutated, they have a different kind of blood, like he was talking about. And it's very interesting because I don't know how people, I don't think people live there, but I know people live by there. But I don't know, man, like that would be kind of weird. I could never use my phone or watch, or you can't talk to anybody. That's crazy. That means there's got to be something there first. And they said a lot of they have a lot of alien sightings there because they think that's why they go there. They're attracted to the magnetized rock there and everything, and that's why they go there. So there's a lot of things being seen there. Like the creatures are really different too. I was looking at it, like different kind of. There's like a turtle there. And there's different like little insects and reptiles, but they're different colors and stuff. It's really weird, and they're just different than any creature they said anywhere else because the magnetism and stuff like that's what I'm trying to be saying, magnetism, and it makes their blood different. So and that would make sense. You know, you're around all that, so you're eventually you're going to get used to being around that because. That's a lot of, a lot of magnets. Have you ever seen what magnets do when you put them together? You know, they bring everything together, you know, especially metal or iron and stuff like that. It sticks right to it. So you have it in your blood too. So I could figure it probably changes. If you would live out there, like if you're a human, it probably would change your blood after a couple years. You get adapted to it. Probably be something different. So I don't know too much. Like I said, this is something I just like recently heard about. This is like James was telling me about it for a couple weeks, and we've been wanting to do this, but you know his dad's been sick. It's very interesting. I believe there's a lot of alien activity. I believe that there's a lot of stuff they're finding, and I don't know. It's an interesting read or interesting place to know that you can go to this place. And there's, we live in the, 21st century, and you can't even use a computer. You can't use a phone. You can't call anybody. You can't talk to anybody on the internet. There's nothing there. It's dead. You can't even use a compass, and that's weird because if you usually use a compass to find your way, northwest, south, southwest, whatever you want to go, not get into it. You can't even do that. It goes around in circles. That's really weird altogether. So. Yes, there's something weird about this place. I think we're very interested in it. I think the Mexican government's very interested in it and has been since this last, 50, 60 years. Everybody's been exploring this place, and seeing the scientists have that little refuge out there. I think it's like a little research center. That's what it is. It's out there. They built it. I mean, I was sitting there thinking, if they built this thing, how do they communicate? Because there's no internet, there's no talking to anybody. You can't use walkie-talkies. So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, you can drive out there, but how could you, like, what would you have to do? You have to, like, get off the property. If you had anything you did find, how could you even know what's going on? Because you can't find anything. You can't tell anybody unless you get off the property and like go, what, 30 miles down the way. So that's kind of weird too, because I think that there's something going on there, because they know people can't, unless you drive out there, but there's people who go there all the time, but you ain't ever going to find out what's really going on there, because now they don't need, there's no way of tracing it. And you can't find it if you try to go. I mean, you can find, I guess people go there, but like I said, this is a weird one. I mean, it would be perfect for a government or to do stuff there, like with aliens and stuff, and you would never know. And there's another thing, like I was reading on one of these theories that it was two men and a woman, and they were white, like white, like white in color, but they were odd looking, and they were very tall, but they spoke perfect Spanish. And they said they came from a cloud out of nowhere, and they visited a couple people out here who was actually studying stuff out there, and they would just come out of nowhere, and they said that they asked them where they were from, and they said from up in space. So that's one article. That's one thing that I don't know if James knew about, but there is supposedly there are two men and a female. They show up, and they're supposed to be. They look weird, like they're different, like they have a white tint skin, silverish skin, and they showed up out of nowhere, like a cloud of dust comes out, like it said it was like kind of like a magical dust you've seen in cartoons and stuff like that, and it came out of nowhere. So they said that they would come out and talk to people, and say they were from space. So that was another one that that's another thing that people were talking about. There's supposedly like they said, space aliens they visit there, or ancient astronauts and stuff like that used to come there, and they still do. They think they just show up like in a portal. They were showing like a portal, like people think that's how they come. Some aliens come here in another dimension. They open up a portal, so they think that's why they do it there, because of the a lot of magnet activity there. So they use that to come there. So they said that that's what these people came. Star people came from another place or space and just showed out of nowhere. So that was another theory. But yeah, it's pretty very interesting, James. There you go. That's all I got. I don't have too much on this one.
This is one of those, for me, that I was really, really excited about. When I first started reading about the Zone of Silence years ago, I thought, man, this is awesome. Because I love the Bermuda Triangle. I love these kind of things where it's this crazy mystery and you don't know what the hell is going on. You don't know if any of this stuff is real or not. But it's one of those that has the potential to really be cool, but also has the potential to really, really let you down. And the reason I said in the beginning that there's a lot to unravel here is because these theories have went all over the map. I mean, literally, there's all kinds of crazy theories going on here. There's all kinds of weird tales that people tell about this place, and it just goes bigger and bigger. Now, Old Boy brought up a very good point when he was talking. He said that they built a research station out there, which they did. But how could they communicate? How could they do their work if none of the equipment works? If you can't contact each other, if you don't have internet, if none of that stuff works, how are they able to communicate with each other? How are they able to do their jobs, basically? To me, that was something that popped into my mind as well, and it was honestly the first red flag for the Zone of Silence for me. So then I started looking at all of these claims, from the small ones to the very crazy ones. And I kind of started to ask myself, is any of this real? Are we dealing with a situation here where there's a nugget of truth and a whole bunch of exaggeration? Are we dealing with a situation here where, as crazy as it all sounds, it's all 100% real? Or are we dealing with a situation here that is complete and utter garbage? Does it actually exist? Is this real or not? Well, let's start with that first question that we were talking about the equipment not being able to work. Your radio's not working, your walkie-talkie's not working, that kind of thing. If you talk to the people that actually live there and the people that work at that research station, none of them have any trouble at all with their radios or their compasses. So all of the people at the research station and the residents of the area, their radios work just fine. Their compasses work just fine. Their telephones work just fine. There is no problem whatsoever. As you dig into that, it seems that the only people that are actually saying that the radios won't work and that you can't communicate and that equipment doesn't work and all that are these Zoneros people that I was talking about. And they're kind of the cult-like people that actually believe this, that say, we talk to aliens here. Okay, those are the only people that are saying that the radio signals won't travel out of there, that nothing works. But see, right there is another red flag, because what you have there is a huge contradiction. On one hand, they are saying radios don't work. Telephones do not work. You cannot communicate with each other when you're in the zone of silence because the magnetic anomalies will not allow the radio signals to travel. That's what they're claiming. But then out of the other side of their mouth, they're also claiming that that vortex and those magnetic anomalies make the absolute ideal, perfect situation for communicating with aliens in outer space. So the same area they are claiming that you can't talk to your buddy 5 feet away on a walkie-talkie because the magnetic anomalies will screw the signal up, that same place they are claiming is the ideal situation to send that same radio signal that won't go 5 feet to your buddy thousands of miles into space to talk to aliens. Am I the only one that thinks that smells a little funny? It can't be both. Either the radio signals work or they don't. If it's the perfect place to talk to aliens, because it'll carry that signal all the way off into space, you should also be able to talk to your buddy 5 feet away. Because it's the perfect space for radio signals. Can't be both. So that's the first bubble to pop. The claims of the mutations, that refers to the natural phenomena of the area. Okay, I talked earlier about the tortoises, the turtles, that have triangles on their back, and they're claiming that that is somehow mysterious. Well, when you look into it, triangles are actually a normal pattern variant in the Bolson tortoise population. And the pads of that cactus old boy was talking about, it's perfectly natural for them to turn a shade of violet, which is a purple shade, during a dry spell when there's not a lot of water in the area. That's what they do. That's normal. So that's not really all that mysterious either. They talk about the human population, that the place is populated by almost giants, that these people are humongous. But when you actually go and look, the human population of that area is made up of all types of people and all sizes of people, just like everywhere. I mean, yes, you do have some big people there, but you also have some tiny people there as well. It runs the full gamut, just like everywhere else. I'm 6'5". Old boy's over 6 feet tall. My mother is barely 5 foot. That's kind of normal to have big and small in the area, and that's what you have here. So that part's kind of busted. I mean, even the guy they talk about this one guy who's just enormous, but that same guy, most of his family is normal size. So it's not like it's something very, very strange there. Okay, now you have people that, like I said earlier, come from all over the place trying to find mysterious stuff in the desert, in the zone of silence. They're trying to find alien technology and artifacts that they can bring home, little souvenirs. And that's basically kind of what this is it's just a tourist trap, I think. It's a place where there's tall tales about this area that turn out not to actually be true when you look into it. And it's a place for people just to kind of go on vacation and look around for fossils and look around for mysterious artifacts that they can take home and show all their friends and have a good time. And it's also a place for a few people to have some shops and stuff to make some cash off this deal. But when you actually look into it, a lot of these claims, they just don't hold up. Now you might say, well, what's the big deal? Who gets hurt here? It's, even if it's not true, who cares? I mean, people can go out there and have a good time in the desert. At least they're not watching TV or something. You know, they're out doing something, getting some fresh air. I'm all for going out in nature and enjoying nature and getting fresh air, but the problem is people are jerks a lot of the time, and they don't take care of things very well. So what you have is you have a bunch of people going out there to try to find aliens and find all this cool stuff, and they're trashing up the joint, basically. And they're leaving trash everywhere. They're digging up a bunch of holes looking for stuff. They're taking stuff out of the natural environment, and they're not replacing the dirt in the holes. They're leaving holes everywhere. They're leaving garbage everywhere. It's not very good land management. And basically, they're just a pain in the ass for the people that actually live there. And the people at this research station who are trying to do their job and research the plants and animals and stuff of the area, they're kind of a pain in their ass too, because they're always in the way. And seeing as this is desert, and Old Boy can speak to this here in a few minutes because he lives in the desert, so he can definitely tell you, the desert can get very dangerous very quick. The majority of these people, when they go out here, they are not prepared to be in an isolated desert environment where they can't just pull over at 7-Eleven and grab a soda. They don't have the proper hydration. They don't have the proper food. They don't have what they need to survive out there. So they go tramping out in the desert looking for artifacts and trying to find space aliens and stuff, and they end up in trouble and they got to be rescued. And this happens quite a bit, actually. So then you have resources where these people are going to have to go out and try to find these idiots who are out in the desert, get lost. They got to try to save their life. So basically what this is actually, in all reality, is kind of a pain in the butt to the people that live there. I'm sure some tourist money comes in, but I don't think it's worth it, honestly, for the people there. I think a few people are making bank on this, but I think the majority of people, it's just an irritant. Another thing that really is a huge red flag on this one for me is if you look at what the local residents of the area have said, none of them believe in the zone of silence. They all say it's BS. They all say their phones work just fine, their radios work just fine, their compasses work just fine. It's all crazy. It's all BS. None of them claim it's true. And the other thing is nobody can tell you exactly where the zone of silence actually is. Where it started off is miles away from where they claim it is now. So this thing's kind of moving around depending on, I guess, the availability of fossils and rocks to dig up or something. I don't know. It's not staying in the same location. They're saying it's here. They're saying it's there. I think what's happening is they say it's one place, and they go to actually check it out, and they say, well, there's nothing here. Look, everything works fine. Oh, yeah, you're not in the zone of silence. It's 10 miles down the road this way now. You got to go. You know what I mean? It keeps moving because people go there and they say, wait a minute, everything works just like it's supposed to work. This is BS. So my judgment on it, what I say is I think that it is not true. I don't think that there's anything crazy going on here. I think what you had here was this place was a victim of circumstance, so to speak. You had a missile crash there. The missile wasn't supposed to go there. The missile malfunctioned and went too far. That's where it landed. Some people took advantage of that fact and made up some stories about it, and it has just got blown way out of proportion. And this one disappoints me, honestly, because I wanted this one to be true. Because I love stuff like this. You know, I love the Bermuda Triangle. I love all these mysterious places that supposedly all this phenomena happens. But this is also a very, very good lesson for everybody to do some research and to really check it out. Because what you have here is you have a lot of claims being made about phenomena happening that isn't actually happening. It's a lot of tall tales that are being told about this area. You don't have any actual proof of anything. There's no evidence. There's no eyewitness accounts of reputable people that actually work there on a daily basis. They're actually there, and they say, "Hey, look, I'm here every day, and this is real. This doesn't happen. You know, your radio doesn't work. Your compass is all screwed up. There's giant mole people coming out of the ground and biting people's heads off. Whatever. You don't have that eyewitness base of people that are actually there saying that it's going on. What you have is a bunch of, well, I heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy who said that this is going on here. You see what I'm saying? It's one of those kind of deals where when you actually try to track it down, it's all smoke and mirrors. There's nothing concrete that you can hold in your hands and say, this is real. You know, we cover a lot of different subjects on this show. We cover cryptozoological creatures is a great example of this. And you have a lot of people that do not believe that Bigfoot is real. They don't believe the Loch Ness Monster is real. They don't believe in a lot of these creatures. But at least with these creatures, we have evidence. We have prints that we can hold in our hands, castings. We have photographs. We have film. We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of actual eyewitness accounts, some from police officers and doctors and reputable people, not crackheads. You know, these are people that are respected, that are saying there's something to this. You just don't have that here. What you have is the scientists in the area that are actually there every day doing the work, saying it's all BS. It's not real at all. Because all the claims that the people are making aren't true. So as much as it disappoints me, this one is, I believe, false. I don't think that the zone of silence exists other than in fairy tale. I don't think that there's anything going on there. I don't think anybody's actually there talking to space aliens or anything like that. I think that it's all made up. Now, you do have a group of people called the Zoneros that I was talking about that claim that they are. They go and they have meetings and stuff out there in the desert, and they claim that they are talking to aliens out there. But you've had all kinds of weird cults that have claimed a bunch of weird things that aren't true. So you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt. If they can produce actual evidence of those communications, then I'll be happy to say I'm wrong. But until you have that, until you have documentation, until you have video evidence of them actually communicating with aliens, it's just a story until it's proven. And like I said, as much as it disappoints me, I think this one is completely busted. So I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy and see what his final conclusion is, if he matches with what I said, or if he's thinking there might be more that I've overlooked.
And thanks, James. See, I'm conflicted on this one. I think 60 to 70% of this is exaggerated, but I do believe there's a little bit of truth because I did watch Ancient Aliens on this one. They did this a long time ago. So I believe there's a little bit with the meteors hitting there and stuff like that. There might be a little bit of magnetism there. I believe that. That part I believe, and maybe aliens do get attracted to that. Now, I don't believe all this other stuff that's going on. You know, there's different kind of animals. That's true. That stuff's all true. That, you know, like he was saying with the cactus being purple, I do believe that does have some magnetism there. I think it's exaggerated. I think there's dead zones in Vancouver. There's a place like that there. The Bermuda Triangle. There's dead zones out here in California. Like he was saying, he wanted me to talk about the desert. I'll talk about that in a minute. But there's parts in the desert where it's dead zone. You can't get the internet and stuff like that, but your phone works somewhat. I've been to dead zones. So this is probably more of a military hoax and people trying to get money, the locals there, to make people go there, and it's worked. And that's what I think kind of on that. You know, there's some truth to it, maybe very little. Maybe there's been an alien sighting here and there and people exaggerated it. So there's always a little bit of truth to it. But and back to the desert thing, yeah, the desert, it's really weird. It gets hot, and then it can, like during the day, and then it can get real cold. The temperatures change. It snows here sometimes. It rains. Sometimes it's 100 degrees one day.
50 degrees the next. It happens. Very windy here. A lot of people say Chicago's a windy city. Yeah, right. Come to the desert. It's windy here 300 times a year. Out a year, 300 days it'll be windy. You might get 60 to 50 days it's barely any wind, but majority of the time it's like wind blows really bad out here. So back to that, what I was saying is
pretty much it's probably not 60 to 70%, BS, and the other is probably somewhat true. The animals and stuff like that. There's probably some problems there. People exaggerating what happened with the missile. The missile might have just accidentally went off course. That's a possibility too. So I believe the same thing, James. I think it's probably been exaggerated by the people there, and the government's made it. They probably use it for their advantage some way or somehow, and so does the Mexican government, and they make money off of it too. On top of that, so that's probably why they have. People are going there. When people make claims on stuff, you get 10, 15 people saying they saw something, then you start having people come out of the woodwork. It happened with Area 51. I mean, there really is stuff going on there, but there's been so many exaggerations. There's people who built buildings and claim have documents and all this stuff, and it's been taken away, and they sell stuff, but yet they're selling stuff in a store to make money. So get that. Think about that, guys. When you go and listen to some of these people, but yet they're selling stuff. So think about that. They're trying to make money off you. So you'll keep coming back, stopping at their souvenir shops. Sorry about that, guys. Or their souvenirs or whatever they're doing. Alien jerky. That's one of the guys that started that was from one of those places. He took the name Alien Jerky. So think about that. They're there to make profit, so you guys will buy stuff and keep going out there. Area 51 exists, and that's one show we need to do eventually too, and we will one day. But I think people use that because of the name. They've made video games, movies, merchandise, shirts. People said that they've seen this and that everywhere else, and it's like there's a lot of activity there, and people go out there and spend thousands and thousands of tourists spend a lot of money there. So that's what I think the same thing is here. They're making some money off of there, but that's all I can say to that, James. I'm pretty much in the same thing with you, brother.
Yeah, I think the main thing here that makes it look like something might be going on is the way the government handled it, the secrecy of the whole thing. And from somebody that spent their life in the military and the government, trust me, that's kind of just the way it works. The majority of the time, there's a whole bunch of secrecy for no apparent reason. The stuff that's actually horrifyingly bad that's going on, you'll never even hear about. All these things that you know about, like Area 51 and all that, is not what you think it is. The places where the actual stuff is going on that you think is going on in places like Area 51 are way underground, and you've never heard of them. I'll just put it that way. Okay, a lot of the stuff like with Area 51 and stuff like that, what you have going on in most of the sites where everybody thinks there's all this alien stuff going on, in the majority of them, what you actually have going on is top secret classified aircraft experimentation. It is terrestrial crafts that we are making that are top secret and classified. That's what's happening in a lot of those places. That's why the secrecy. That's why people see strange things flying around in the sky around there, is because it's actually aircraft that we are producing that you don't know about yet. Like our stealth technology planes. We've had those for decades and decades and decades before the public knew that they existed. And they were in places like that, being developed and tested and brought up to the level that they are now in a classified setting. That is what actually goes on in a lot of those sites that you think are alien sites. Now, the actual sites that have the alien kind of stuff and even worse going on, all that takes place way underground. And when I say underground, I mean actually in the earth underground, in bases that are built just miles underground. that is a show I will probably never do, actually, because that's the kind of stuff that'll get you killed. So that show you'll never hear. We might do a show on like Area 51 one day or something like that, but those are the kind of subjects you have to kind of tread lightly on, because there are some things that they don't want you to talk about and they don't want you to know. But the majority of times when you have these situations like you have here in the zone of silence, where the government comes in and covers everything up and it's all hush-hush and all secretive, there's nothing actually crazy going on there. It's just the government being secretive for secrecy's sake. You know, a lot of times, honestly, it's a cover your ass situation. Somebody screwed up. That missile was not supposed to go into the desert in Mexico. Okay, if you really think about this, that is an international incident. That is a provocation of war, firing a missile into a sovereign country. And that's what happened here. The United States fired a missile that ended up crashing into the desert in Mexico. So we shot a missile at Mexico, whether we intended to or not. And somebody screwed that up. So it's a cover your ass situation. Everything's top secret, everything's classified. Nobody can know. Because if people find out about this, it's a big deal. A lot of times it's stuff like that is the reason this stuff gets classified, is because they're covering their own butts. Because either somebody screwed up, or in a lot of cases, they're doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, that it's highly illegal, highly immoral, and just terrible. And so there's a lot of secrecy that covers up a lot of those things that take place with our different three-letter agencies and all that. That's a reason for being classified and being secret as well. But I think that's what you have here. You don't have... I just do not believe that this is an alien situation here. I believe this is a colossal screw-up that they tried to cover up, and the story leaked out because they used local contractors for security. And that's a big no-no. That's one of the first rules of the book, is you do not subcontract to local people for security concerns, because they're going to talk. It's going to leak out. And I think that's exactly what happened here, and it got blown out of proportion. But with that being said, I'm going to throw back to Old Boy. We are almost out of time, and let him give his shout-outs.
Thank you, brother. And I want to thank everybody from ParaX Radio who listens to our show. Over 6,000 subscribers. Let's keep going. Go to James Hershey's YouTube page. He'll tell you where to go. You guys want merchandise? You guys can buy shirts, whatever you want. He'll let you know where to go. I want to thank you guys for following us every week. We try to do the best we can with new shows. Like I said, we had a couple things happen, so we finally had to do some reruns after a couple years. So just remember, we've only done reruns this one time and one other time because of one of us passed, one of our friends passing on. It was on the show. So out of over 2 years, that's the first time that's happened. But thank you for your patience, guys. And again, prayers to Debbie and her family and on her loss. I'm praying for you guys, and I love you. Have a great night, misfits, sugar ladies, demon lovers, and monster hunters. Good night. Blessed be. See you later.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. Please go and subscribe to the channel and check out all the videos. There's tons there. You got Staring Into the Abyss radio show every episode. You got the Tales from the Abyss TV show every episode. You got a bunch of paranormal news videos. You got all kinds of cool stuff there. So just go check it out. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/Staring Into the Abyss. That's teespring.com/stores with an S on the end /Staring Into the Abyss. That's where all the merch is. Thank you guys so much for all your support and all your love and all of your messages of support during this time. It really means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. We will see you again next week with a brand new show. So until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
You may be faced with problems, stronger, and the wind may blow you over, but one thing remains: God will never change. Sometimes we don't always understand, but we just gotta trust it's in His hands. God help us have the strength like this little man. Help us fight the battles that I know we can. When we call on Jesus' name, it doesn't mean that it won't rain. 'Cause in my heart I know you had a plan for this little man. Because every day he struggled, but his faith was never troubled. A shirt can't explain, never heard of it pain. His smile was always shining, even when he was unwinding. And one thing remained: he danced in the rain. And I know you don't understand, but in my heart I know God had a plan. God help us have the strength like this little man, and help us fight the battles that I know we can. When we call on Jesus' name, it doesn't mean that it won't rain. 'Cause in my heart I know you had a plan for this little man. I know he walks with Jesus. I know there's finally peacefulness, but through the pain he smiled. If we could all be like this child. God help us have the strength like this little man. Help us fight the battles that I know we can. When we call on Jesus' name, it doesn't mean that it won't rain. 'Cause in my heart I know you had a plan for this little man. When we call on Jesus' name, it doesn't mean that it won't rain. 'Cause in my heart I know you had a plan for this little man. So smile through the pain and